Hello there, listener. My name is Kevin, and you're listening to Get a Life podcast, Kunai. Now, you may be wondering why I'm opening the episode in such an unusual way, but, well, to put it simply, that's because this episode is unusual. Guys, welcome to Kunai's very first Halloween special. As always, I'm joined by Bish. Yeah, I'm joined by Bish.
Hello.
And Joe.
I love all of you.
And today we're going to be talking about Another. And now, it's a special occasion, not only because it's the first time we have a Halloween special on Kunai, but because it's the first time we cover a horror anime.
For you new folks, Get Alive Podcast Kunai is a monthly anime discussion podcast under the Get Alive group. Due to the nature of the discussion, we can't avoid spoilers for the show to be discussed. For those shows that are based off an existing piece of work like manga, light novel, or any other media form, we don't cover the source material, so we're not going to be talking about manga, etc. We can be found on Stitcher, iTunes, and on Google Play. And if you'd like to recommend a show for us to watch and make an episode of Kunai on, send your suggestion on Twitter at GALPKunai or by the email address galp.pea@gmail.com. And we only ask that you suggest shows that have at most 30 episodes. But if you like our content, you can support us by checking out our sponsor, which is Crunchyroll. So go to crunchyroll.com/kunai for 14-day free trial. And remember, you can watch Another on Crunchyroll. So just saying, if you want to join in on a discussion on Twitter, go get that free trial, watch on Crunchyroll, and then, talk to us. We're cool people.
Yeah, so for those of you who are unfamiliar with Another is a horror mystery anime based off of Yukito Ayatsuji's 2009 novel of the same name. Aired during the winter season of 2012, the 12 episodes were produced by PA Works and directed by Tsutomu Mizushima. And for the plot overview, basically what you need to know is that in 1972, Misaki, who's a student of Yomiyama North Middle School in class 3-3, suddenly died partway through the school year. And devastated by the unexpected loss, the students and teachers behaved like Misaki was still alive, which led to a strange phenomenon. And in spring 1988, 15-year-old Sakakibara transfers into Yomiyama's class 3-3, where he meets Mei Misaki, a strange student whom their classmates and teachers seemingly ignore. This class is soon caught up in a strange phenomenon, in which students and their relatives begin to die in gruesome ways. Realizing that their deaths relate to the Misaki of 1972 incident, yearly calamity that has struck most classes since 1972, Koichi and Mei seek to figure out how to stop it before it kills everyone in their class. Alright guys, so, first things first, what are your first impressions of Another?
Yeah, when I first started, Another, I was a bit scared. I was just like, oh man, this is a horror anime. I'm not really used to horror anime. I don't watch any horror films. I don't like horror at all. I was the same sort of reaction when I first kind of got into Danganronpa. I was like, no, I can't handle this.
Yeah, Pepto-Bismol is too scary.
Yeah, it's the idea of someone dying, or you don't know. I knew it was a horror, but I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know anything about the story. I didn't search up because I wanted to go in fresh. I think it's incredibly scary going in not knowing what it is, but knowing that it's going to be a horror. I didn't even know if it was a psychological horror or if it was like a jump scary horror. So I was expecting jump scares. I was expecting psychological. I was expecting everything in the book there because I'm so new to horror. So I came in to this anime incredibly scared, and then I started watching, and I was like, there is some sort of mysterious vibe to the anime, and it was incredibly creepy, especially towards the, within the first sort of episodes, you get those jump cuts to the dolls, and I was like, okay, is this going to be a jump scare? Am I going to get one of these dolls flash up at me like Five Nights at Freddy's or something like that? I was expecting such a thing. So I was incredibly scared by my first impressions, and to be honest, I kind of dropped the anime. Like halfway through, I was like, not halfway through, but after the first kind of 3 episodes, before anyone really died. But I kind of dropped it because I was like, dude, I'm not feeling in the right emotional mood to watch this anime. I would watch them at night time. I would watch it in Japanese as well, and it was incredibly creepy for me. But I don't know what anyone else would think in terms of their first impressions.
That's very interesting, actually. Joe, what do you have to say?
This is an interesting story for me. So, back in high school, I was introduced to this by a friend. It was I saw the first episode, and although I was wasn't really paying attention, I was just talking with my friends, the the intro and all like Bish said, the random doll cuts just kind of piqued my interest, so I kept my eye on it for a long time. And since we were doing for the podcast, I decided oh, it's about time that I finally saw what the show was about. And as I was watching it, well, unlike Bish, I'm very familiar with what horror is like, and not just with Danganronpa, just with anything in general. I'm not much of a thriller fan, though, but I can stand high levels of blood or gore and such. And so I was watching this. I wasn't really I was less scared of the show. I was more captivated. I was really I was focusing less on how gruesome everything was and more about what's the meaning behind all these events. It's it was more I was paying attention to the mystery aspect of it. And so that's what kind of drew me into the show and what kept me watching until the end.
Well, that's a very good point, because yes, it can be very tense and very scary with the way that they cut things in the initial few episodes, but I have to agree with you that the mystery is what really compelled me to watch the anime. Just to give people a little background before I continue, though, I actually kind of randomly stumbled across another. I had heard about it before. It is pretty well known in the anime community, but I kind of dismissed it as that one horror anime. And like Bish, I'm not really into horror all that much. I mean, I play Resident Evil and stuff that are slightly scary, but I'm not into horror games, movies, or books, right? So I was just going through my backlog one day. I saw that another book was on my backlog, so I bought it, read it, and I was like, holy shit, I have to fucking watch this, because if the anime is anything like the book, it'll be very fucking good, right? So I was really hyped when I first started watching, right? I was like, booyah, this is gonna be great, right? This is my first horror anime. But I have to admit that the first few episodes, I was kind of skeptical, because it was kind of tense, but not quite scary. There's never a moment in the first few episodes, or I dare say in any episode, where I was legitimately scared and had to pause or something to stop watching, like I would in other games or movies. But it was still tense. The problem was that I think it was kind of contradictory in the sense that the art style of the environment and stuff, it's very realistic, it's very detailed, whereas character designs, they look kind of cutesy, which is kind of offsetting to me, because you have a horror anime, right? So it's really macabre, serious, and gory, and you have these really cute character designs, so it kind of stands out and kind of ruins the effect for me, right?
I mean, you don't really see how the cuteness can kind of betray itself until you get to the parts where when they start getting killed, or when they go insane and they just have those creepy smiles.
Yeah, exactly. It's not until later on when people start fucking dying in droves that you realize that, what, maybe the cute thing is actually what they intended, because having really cute characters die in extremely gruesome ways, and trust me.
Yeah, it gives you a false sense of serenity.
Yeah, and it's fucking creepy, right? Because it's just so fucking disturbing, right? So initially I was kind of skeptical. It was contradictory, because I was getting different vibes from different aspects of the show. But later on, when shit hits the fan, people start dying, and it picks up, that's when this anime starts shining, right? So at first it was really, I have to say, it's kind of like a cheesy J-horror. That was my impression of it, unfortunately, but it picked up over time.
Plot twist, everyone dies.
Fortunately not. Fortunately not. The fucking last arc, though, is pretty damn close. That could have happened really easily.
Yeah.
But speaking of the last arc, I was wondering what moments stuck out to you in the anime, like any favorite moments or episodes.
Bish, you have disappointed me.
Joe, you're completely right. It's the swimsuit episode, and let me explain why. The swimsuit episode was quite odd, because I didn't expect such a swimsuit episode to actually occur. I only found out that there was a swimsuit episode because the website I was watching it on had a thumbnail for each video and a description, and I was like, oh man, you just fucking ruined it for me. I thought, and it had that scene, where they're eating watermelon and stuff, and I was like, oh man, are you serious? Like, what the fuck is going on? But it was kind of a breath of fresh air. It also kind of, looking back at that swimsuit episode, it kind of fucked me up mentally after I watched the last episode of the anime. It is. It's because you're like, oh, you look, they left the town. You thought everyone was going to be safe. And then that one guy dies only because he got a concussion inside the town. And then he left and he died in the water. So I was like, no, no, no.
We're having a fun time on the beach. Oh, we're going to get the ball that flew far into the ocean, and then it looks like he might be having trouble getting back. We should go get him. And oh, look, there's a motorboat. Oh, he's coming to him. Oh, he's getting grinded by a motorboat.
It fucking comes out of nowhere, right? Because they're having fun at the beach, and after the fucking music kicks in, and you're like, shit. Something bad's gonna happen.
Now, here's the thing with another was essentially Death Flag the anime.
I think from, episode 3 or something on, there's one death per episode, if I'm not mistaken, or deaths happen really frequently.
Yeah, man, it was like a Monster of the Week show. You know what I mean? It's like...
The fucking last arc, though, the last 3 episodes, holy shit. I was like, am I watching Battle Royale? Like,
no, imagine watching this simulcasted.
No, I have to say that they cut the end of the episodes really well. It was really tense, and I'm glad that I didn't watch it simulcast, because I would not have the fucking patience to deal with that bullshit. They cut it really well. The suspense was really well done.
I completely agree. And going into actually why the swimsuit episode was my favorite, like I mentioned, it was a breath of fresh air. I didn't expect a character to die during that episode. It's also because it kind of took away from the murderous sort of theme that we got in the previous episodes. Like, there were some pretty gruesome depths in this anime. Like,
the first one, I think, is one.
The
that stuck
first
with me the
one,
most.
I think that fucked me up when she died. The umbrella killed her and went through her throat. That fucked me up. I think I don't want to say it's the most gruesome death, but I think it's on there for me. It's not necessarily a favorite moment, but with that whole thing, it was just very surreal and it was very scary for me. So it was kind of like a nice break having these swimsuit episodes and hey, look, everyone's good friends. And it also what also intrigued me was the whole mysterious aspect. When they found the guy that stopped the curse and he was like, oh yeah, shit, I can't remember anything. Do you know what I mean? And then they were still kind of working out. It kind of reminded me of the investigation team from Persona, or indeed Future Foundation from Danganronpa. It reminds me of that because it's like everyone is trying to figure out what's going on and there's a mystery, and that intrigued me. Joe, what do you think? What was your favorite moments?
Okay, so here's the thing about this anime. I don't really have a favorite episode because each episode was very similar in concept. For moments, I'd say the moments with Sakakibara. That's it. Sakakibara and Misaki Mei. I just really liked their development, like in their relationship as they progressed through the show. It's I really enjoyed how Sakakibara was acknowledging Misaki Mei's existence and like making her feel like she isn't alone and she doesn't exist. And it's like it just felt really good that they were able to, because at the beginning of the show, like she was saying like, oh, like don't stay near me, like it's probably already begun, and like all these different things. And then by the end of it, it's like she wants to be with him, which I really enjoyed. It's
a very interesting evolution of the relationship, and I think that the first moment where that was evident for me was in episode 3, because in episode 3 is of particular note, because like I said, in episodes 1 and 2, I was kind of skeptical. I was like, I wasn't feeling it for this anime, right? But in episode 3, that was the first time where I noticed some really cool use of the cinematography, and they use it really well when they pair it with the relationship between Mei and Sakakibara, because it's the first time when he enters the doll shop, right, and he's on the phone with the nurse, right, and he's asking about who's that girl that died in the hospital, because at this point he's still really suspicious of Misaki, right, and we're all really suspicious of Misaki because we're like, oh shit, she's really pale, she's really mysterious. Is she dead? Is she a ghost or something, right? It cuts to like the hospital, right, as he's looking at Mei. So it really fucks with your mind and you don't know what to think. Is she the dead one? Is she alive? Like, what the fuck is going on? So
yes, I have to say that this is something the show does a really good job at. It's like it's making you think in certain directions.
Mm-hmm. And you just play right into their hands.
For a long time, I thought, oh, is like Misaki Mei is probably like the girl who died a long time ago, or like you found out like, oh, Misaki's actually a guy, and it's like, and then you find out, oh, she's not dead, she just doesn't exist.
Yeah, misdirection is really well used in this anime. I have to praise them for that. And another thing that I really liked about episode 3, I don't know whether liked is the good term to use here, because that's when the first person dies, right? And like I said, I read the book before this, so I knew that she was going to die and how she was going to die, but it still made me very fucking uneasy, and that's telling you something, because I gotta say that when you're reading a book, you can choose to, ignore certain aspects or, picture it in a certain way, right? But when you're watching a show, you don't have that option. It's not your imagination that is at play here. It's the director that's fucking with your mind, and you have to look at the screen as she fucking plunges down and dies. And it was done very well, but it made me very uncomfortable as well. It's just the gore, the twitching.
I kind of agree with you. It did make me uncomfortable, but at the same time, I appreciate what the director did, because he didn't make it like overly gruesome. Do you see what I mean? Because he could have made it like, and this is something within the anime as well. Most of the deaths are gruesome, but they're not too gruesome. Because there are some anime where you just see too much gore and shit going on. For example, Berserk. That has fucking a lot of gore and stuff. But this has the right amount. It's like you see them die, but it's not like in super slow motion, and then you see everything, like all the guts and shit come out. No, it's pretty clean and simple, and I think that works to its advantage. It makes it more creepy. It builds up the creepy atmosphere for that, and I think I have to give a thumbs up to that director that obviously made that design choice there.
And while we're on the topic of deaths, I don't know whether you guys took any particular note of the last arc or the last 3 episodes when they're on vacation, they go to that mansion, but that really fucking hit me because up until that point, characters die like once every episode or once every other episode, right? So it's pretty normal. You get it kind of kind of grow into what to expect, and that a certain character is gonna die every week, right?
No, it's like they were using every murder in the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because by that point, it's late in the anime, and you kind of know what to expect. You know that someone's gonna die. But then, boom, this last arc comes around, right? And shit hits the fan. Everybody's fucking dying around you. You have no idea what the fuck is going on, right? Because it's kind of exciting in a way, because at the last moment of episode 9, I think, when Misaki's just about to tell Sakakibara who the extra is, fucking door knocks, right? And then you see Teshigawara come in super, like, completely exhausted, and you don't know what the fuck is going on, right? And neither do the protagonists, right? It's just, that somebody's dead, right? And he probably killed him. The fucking kitchen's on fire, and there's chaos everywhere, right? And that just continues until the last episode. And it's that intensity and that fast pace that I really liked in the last arc. What you guys think?
That was actually really funny to me when I saw that one scene with him, like, bursting into the room. He's like, "Oh, hey guys, I think I fucked up and killed somebody."
Yeah, no shit. There's another moment as well in the last arc where the librarian, he comes back, right? Because he drove the kid to the hospital who had asthma, but he comes back and saves what's his face, right? And I don't know whether it's the translation or whether it was actually in the original book or whatnot, but he says, "This is not normal." And I'm like, I literally paused at that moment. I'm like, yeah, no fucking shit, Sherlock. Shit's not normal when the mansion's burning down and half your goddamn students are dying.
No, I like how it took so long for everyone to realize that. It's like you see Koichi went inside, like, he went inside the room and he saw the fire, and it took like 3 people to realize that, like, oh, this place is on fire.
One thing that I wanted to mention about that fire is that realistically, let's be honest, realistically, how can a fire that large be contained within a dining hall and not spread, considering that room was made out of wood? And do you see what I mean?
That doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, because the guy opens the door and he gets roasted, but before that, you don't really have any mention of the fire. I did not really pay attention to that, though, because I was too busy thinking of the guy who literally just got fucking burned to a crisp.
Oh, I felt sorry for that guy. I didn't even know his name.
He opened the gates of hell.
In a way, it was kind of comical the way he died.
No, it was comical. It
was, but it's comical in the fucked up way.
No, I felt so bad because he was just burning alive, which is supposed to be one of the most painful ways to die. But at the same time, it just, like, I couldn't help but laugh while he was just being burned. Like, I feel so bad about it.
That's my favorite part in the last arc is probably the revelation, all right, about Reiko. And I want to know what you guys thought about that, because I thought it was really cool the way they presented it. I knew what was gonna happen. I want to see what you guys thought, because you guys were completely...
that was the anime equivalent of a murder mystery story flipping you in front of you.
Were you guys expecting it all, or...?
No, it's because here's the thing. Here's the plot twist. It wasn't the classroom that was the problem. It was the faculty room. That was the whole problem this entire time. It's like, how do you think of that?
No, but there are other hints too, though. Like the bird, right? If you remember, it keeps on shouting Rei's name, and up until that point, you're kind of like, why the fuck is it doing that, right?
It probably did, but like the show did a really good job at masking that, so you wouldn't think that, because it's like a parrot and they just repeat stuff.
Exactly. So at that point, they have a few clues that they throw at you, right? But you don't really think too much of it until the very end. And I think it's very good, because when they throw the flashbacks happen, right, and they start mentioning all those strange things about Reiko and Miss Mikami being the same person, all the pieces start falling into place. And you're like, oh shit, okay, it makes sense now, right? All of those things that felt really off, those are actually intentional, and they were meant to hint that Miss Mikami and Reiko were one and the same.
It kind of confused me when I saw that, because it was just like, how are they the same? Yes, they did go to that flashback, and she said, when I'm at school, don't refer to me as Reiko. And I was like, okay, cool, that makes sense. Maybe she's a teacher, etc. And then, they kind of gave us some facts that came out of nowhere. With no other class has a assistant homeroom teacher. Well, how are we supposed to know that no other class has an assistant homeroom teacher? That information wasn't given to us. It's also the fact that when it kind of drew me off, because everyone was like, hey, look, no one remembers her. But wasn't she like in charge of the art club, for example? Like, she's in charge of that, and she was the one that announced.
But your memories are altered, though.
Yeah, the memories are altered. It's not they just forget completely who she is. It's like they remember there's somebody who taught the art class, but they can't remember who it actually was.
Does seem really bullshit at first, and I have to agree there. It feels kind of cheap, but I have to remember that the effects of the phenomenon are pretty damn strong, because even the tape recording, when the guy says the name of the extra, it gets bleeped out or something. It's blurred. It
gets distorted, yeah.
Yeah, they can't make it out, right? And even their memories are altered, because he doesn't realize that Reiko actually died a year and a half ago, and that he was in Yomiyama a year and a half ago, because he completely forgets all of that, right? He's so confident that he knows what's going on, and he knows about his past, but he doesn't, because it's the fucked up magic that's at
also kind of confused me was the librarian also spoke about it. He was like, oh, it's kind of weird that they made her an assistant homeroom teacher after what happened a year and a half ago. And I was like, what happened a year and a half ago? Why did they invite her back to be an assistant homeroom teacher? That's something that kind of, it was in my mind at the time when he said it, but I quickly forgot about it because of everything else that was going on. And I have to admit that's great, because obviously it made that plot twist even more, like a what the fuck moment, and it shocked me even more. But I do have to say that a lot of things kind of were left untied for me, like specifically with that plot twist. For example, why was I'm presuming the protagonist was in that city for about a year and a half ago because he was attending the funeral. That's why. Although at the same time you see the person that's stabbing Reiko-chan, and I'm like, okay, are they the same person? Is it him? Did he stab his own auntie? Because just only because
it does look like him. I was confused.
It does look like him. So I was like, what? Was it him? And he can't remember, or something like that?
Well, it does look like him. I have to admit that that is true. But I think that they did mention that it was just an unidentified assailant from the class. So a student murdered her, if I recall correctly. I don't know why they chose to model him so similarly to Saki, but that's how it is. It's weird. What disturbed me more, though, is that although I did think that the reveal itself was well executed, the evidence, like you said, Bish, about there not being extra assistant teachers in other classes is kind of BS. Because yes, you can kind of explain why he never calls Miss Mikami Reiko at school by the fact that she told him not to, but on things like the fucking class trip, right, where they're not even at school, I'm really surprised that he doesn't call her Reiko, and there's absolutely no mention of her name.
Here's the thing, it's like for a story that wanted you to kind of figure out that it was a faculty member that was the extra person instead of a student, they really focused on the student aspect of it more.
Yeah, exactly.
They did a really good job of kind of like sending you a different way, which probably blinded everyone from seeing like the huge twist that would be at the end.
Yeah, and that's a key element of the story. It's misdirection, because there's so many moments in the story where you don't know what to think, right? Because there's one point where you think that, oh shit, maybe Saki's the fucking one that's dead, right? And that
with the dreams.
That mind fucked me, because Akazawa was like, wait, if your mom died while she was in Yomiyama, maybe you were an unborn child and you're the one that's deceased and you've come back, right? So
with that point, as soon as she said that, I was like, that's probably bullshit, because she said that she met him. So for me, that was just like an instant debust in a way.
And at the beginning as well, everyone's kind of funneled into thinking that, oh shit, this Mei girl, she's a ghost, isn't she, right? Because they're making it so obvious that she is abnormal and that she's supernatural, right? With the fucking creepy dolls, her popping out of nowhere, people not seeing her, etc. But then everything's explained, right? So they use misdirection so well at so many points in the story that it's really hard to see the ending and to figure out who the extra is, unless you're really sharp and you pick up the clues, as soon as they come out.
It was kind of odd for me, because there were moments, as you mentioned, where I thought Saki was the person that was dead, only because the constant nightmares that he was getting. And he's like, oh, it's your fault that I died because you're dead, blah, blah, blah. Or the fact that Mei, when I first started, I was like, there is something wrong with Mei. She's just like, I thought she was dead, obviously, because of her appearance, and also the fact that no one else can see her. At the beginning, I thought, okay, maybe it's some sort of Bruce Willis thing in Sixth Sense or something like that, where she's just a ghost.
It's justified because, like, they kind of give you information that makes you think that way. It's like, oh, Koichi met Akazawa a year and a half ago, and then a year and a half later, he comes back, but they don't remember meeting. It's like, you would think that something happens that would have altered the memories. And I really find it funny how all of this turned out, because in the end, the reason everyone kept dying was because nobody knew how to count.
No, it's the desks were correct. There was no disturbance in the number of desks. It was the faculty room that had the incorrect number of desks. And the thing is, Reiko was pretty heavily associated with the class, hence why she came back as a ghost, because she attended class 3-3 as a student in the past, and if I'm not mistaken, she taught there at the school, and she taught class 3, and that's how she died, right? So they did say that it's usually she's a homeroom teacher 1.5 years ago, right? And she died during the school trip.
Okay, because I didn't quite understand. I was like, okay, why did she? I thought she had no affiliation, and then she just randomly died. Okay, that makes sense.
She's a homeroom teacher. Yeah, so we talked a lot about misdirection. I think that we all agree that it's a very, cool tool that they use in this anime, and they use it really well, right? But I just wanted, to wrap up the story and, have your thoughts on everything. Because for me, on the whole, I find that the story, it's kind of a mixed bag. Again, I'm going to say that I have conflicting thoughts, because some story elements, they're really cheesy, right? Because you have your typical, cliche school horror story, right, about this ghost, about this curse, and at first it doesn't look all that original, right? But I do have to admit that the universe that they created and the atmosphere is pretty interesting, right, with the characters and the lore that surrounds Omi North. So on the surface, kind of cheesy J-horror, but when you dig deeper, that's when the core of this anime really starts to show itself and it shines. What do you guys think?
To a certain degree, yes, but at the same time, I feel that it did kind of feel the story. I wouldn't say felt predictable, because in a way I was like, oh man, this is gonna happen, and I genuinely thought at one point that that the dead person was the guy with the student president, the guy with the glasses with blue hair. I genuinely thought it was him. I was like, you know what, this guy is the kind of dead person. But, as you mentioned, there was a lot of misdirection and such. But other than that, I felt it kind of fucked me up. That's all I'm going to say.
Not much else. It's just the story was very intriguing. Like I'm a huge I'm a sucker for mystery, for any kind of horror. It's like it's pretty nice. Like I enjoyed the show thoroughly.
Well, I think that the story would not have worked if it weren't for some of the characters, right? And I want to talk about that now, because there are some pretty important characters, but the rest of the cast I find is kind of forgettable. I just want to know what characters you guys took note of, if there were any best girls or best characters that you really liked.
Characters that stood out to me was that creepy, the guy that paints, you know, the one that was painting the Scream. I forgot his name, but obviously, yeah, he kind of reminded me, in terms of his art style, reminded me of Hideyoshi from Bakan Test, and he also kind of reminded me of shit, I forgot his name, from Hagenai, I forgot the name, Yukimura. The reason I said that is because it did remind me a lot of Yukimura, because I was like, oh, this slender kind of dude, and it was like, I wouldn't be surprised if he just turned out to be a girl or something, and we didn't know that. I was expecting that. Obviously, we didn't get that. It's also the fact that he's really shy. He kind of comes out towards the end as, you know, this kind of brave dude. One other guy I would mention that, you know, really stood out was the other guy that was with him, you know, towards the end. Once again, can't remember his name, because he wasn't that important that I remember his name, but obviously his design was to a certain extent very unique in comparison to the other characters that just felt that they were just being killed for the sake of it. And obviously in horror films and in horror stories, you always get those characters that you don't really get enough character development for, and so they just kill them off straight away because it just happens. You kind of want to build it up. Another character that really stood out to me was the first girl that died. You know, she was really happy, and then she was like, oh, don't do that and don't do this, and she really wanted to kind of move Saki away from Mei, you know, when he said, oh yeah, why don't you go with me, I'll walk you home, or something like that. She wanted to...
She's very friendly, and you really wanted to like her, but then, you know, the thing happened. Yep. And they do have to fuck with your feels, right? Unfortunately.
But I think she's very unique also because of her character design. Another character that kind of stood out to me was the tsundere character. Once again, can't remember her name, but she's just a typical tsundere. The one
is it the redhead?
The redhead, yes.
Akazawa.
Yeah, Akazawa. She's very, like, I wouldn't say a trope, but she's needed within the anime, and I think she's a very important part of it. I know, yeah, she is very honest, but you know, her one line is, "Oh, you idiot, you idiot." Like that's oh baka. That's her one line, and it's very tsundere, so she stood out for me there.
The thing is, she kind of made it very clear that, she kind of made herself clear about her feelings. In a way, she didn't really hide much. Like, if she was mad, she expressed. Yeah, she's very blunt. She didn't, because the thing with lots of, generic tsunderes is that they hide their feelings. That's what makes them a tsundere.
Yeah, no, that's true, but at the same time, she does show a lot of even her first interaction with Saki was like, oh, Baka, I threw a can at your head. Oh, you're such an idiot. I'm like, what the fuck? Was she saying it to herself, or was she saying it to him? That's one thing. It's another character that kind of stood out was obviously Mei. I think she stands out the most, if you guys all agree. She had a lot of design features, I feel, that were not taken, but other characters were probably inspired from. One of those being Rika from Chunibyo. You know, she has the eye patch, she's got the whole school uniform, the hairstyle, she even got one of those antennas that kind of go out. She is very, an iconic character. She's very unique as anime characters go.
She's the mascot of the show. You think of Mei, right? Because the whole first half of the novel is literally just dedicated to the mystery of Mei. Like, who is she, right? And she's really mysterious, and that's a driving force behind the first half of the show, and that continues into the second half, right?
In terms of that, I'm really happy with the majority of the character designs within this anime. They are very unique, although the other characters, the ones that got killed off within the final arc, not so unique, but I understand why they didn't spend much time on them. Yeah, they're just faces. They could have been, I'm going to bring it back to Danganronpa. You know, in Danganronpa, when they just have those weird silhouettes for the killers? It could have been like that. It could have been like that, and I wouldn't have cared. Do you see what I mean? They could have just been blank silhouettes.
Yeah, because here's the thing, like Kevin, when they're like when you're trying to do like the whole climactic reenactment, you don't actually see who the killer is when you're putting everything together. Like they don't reveal the silhouette until you finish the climactic reenactment. So like because like it kind of plays like a comic where it's like they're showing like a silhouette of somebody trying to kill, and then like at the end they show like this big scene where you're unmasking that silhouette.
So for me, I don't know. I agree with you, but I disagree with you at the same time, though, because there are two main characters, maybe three. I don't know if Saki really counts. There are two characters that I really liked, but the rest of the cast for me feels kind of weak. I mean, in terms of like actual design, physical design, they do look really nice. Right? Like Tashigawara, he's really cool. He looks very different from the generic characters that get killed off all the time. But I find that the side characters, they don't have as much substance as Saki, Mei, or Akazawa, simply because they fall into this like high school trope where Teshigawara is your typical cool dude. He's like broske basically, right? Whereas Mochizuki, he's characterized by his obsession with that one painter. The fact that he's in the art club, and a lot of the other characters like this as well. They have this one trait that they revolve around, right? So they're not completely flat like the ones that get generically killed off, but at the same time they're not that interesting, and they're not something that I gravitate towards. The characters that are really well developed though are really good. Like Mei, I think that she's my favorite character easily, right? Because she's so iconic, and it's that mystery that really drives you to finish the anime, right? Without her in the first half, I think it would have been very, very boring. And she's really well designed, and honestly, if she weren't in the anime, it just would not be the same at all. And Akazawa is kind of another character that I think is really good, right? Because she initially appears to be just like the other characters, right? She's kind of this stereotypical bitch, right? You don't like her. She's very blunt, and she seems to hate Saki for whatever reason. You don't know why, but you end up warming up to her, right? Because you learn that she's had this tragic past with her brother dying, right? And she's actually a regular student. She has a lot of responsibility on her shoulders, right? She's the one that's at the head of countermeasures, so she's effectively in charge of everyone's lives, right? And that puts a lot of strain on characters. So she starts off kind of meh, but as time progresses, you really, grow to sympathize with her, right? Because of all her struggles and all of her problems, right? But the rest of the cast, like I said, not that impressive. Joe, what you think? Do you agree with me or Bish?
Well, I'm just going to state who my favorite character was. Like I do agree with what you're saying about Mei. Like she's actually my favorite character as well, because like you don't really know much about her. It's like you go in, like you think like you initially think, oh, is she like a ghost of somebody from the past? Like is she the extra student, which is why nobody can quote unquote see her? And like you realize no, she's actually alive, and it's like she accepted this ignorance so that the other students wouldn't have to suffer. And like you kind of just see her open herself up to Saki Kamp
Almost.
Sakakibara. Oh my god, almost. I will never. Okay, everyone who's listening, I will never get that name right, so get used to it. I'm just gonna go back to Koichi because I love JoJo and I love Diamonds Unbreakable especially. So Koichi, like Mei was very open to Koichi, and it's like she showed him around her house, and it's like from somebody who was like trying to push him away at first, she's really grown to love him and like just be like involve herself more with him and spend time with him and do all these different things. And like then like you find out, oh, she's alive, and it's like you don't have to worry about anything supernatural. They're just enjoying themselves and such. I don't really know what much else to say. Like Mei just had very nice character development.
She's really iconic. I think that it's kind of hard to not choose her as one of the best characters because, unfortunately, in my opinion, the rest of the cast isn't that impressive.
It isn't a matter of like best girl or like favorite waifu or anything like that. She's just a very well developed
one of the
character.
things that I have to admire about Mei and the other characters is their art style, right? And that's something I think this anime really nails. The scenery, like I mentioned earlier at the beginning, it's very detailed, right? And the character designs really stand out. And although I do have my gripes about Mei being sort of cartoony, she does look really nice and really appealing, right? And I guess you have to be moe when you're working in the anime industry, right? Because more serious characters might not necessarily sell well with an audience, etc., right?
I don't think that she is moe. The reason I say that is
well, I mean, here's the thing, like, she's moe in style, but she's not moe.
Not even in style.
Yeah.
Like, her character style is not like something akin to something like K-On! Or the moe art style of.
Well, not that kind of moe. She just had a cute design.
I know, but moe
like,
doesn't mean cute. Like, do you see what I mean? Like, that's a common misconception. Yes, she does have that kind of kawaii styling to her, and I wouldn't say it is moe, but it's somewhat a cute art design for her as opposed to being moe, because the other characters have that as well, and there are characters which I kind of consider moe, like for example the first character that was killed off. She's iconically moe. Do you see what I mean? But I wouldn't say Mei is moe, not in the slightest.
The reason I say moe, and I'm sorry for misusing the term, it's just that I feel that, the subject matter, if you were just present the synopsis of the story to someone, right, and you ask them to draw the characters, they probably wouldn't. The first thing that come to mind would not be really cute characters with big eyes, in stereotypical anime fashion. I was expecting the anime adaptation to have a more realistic art style, right? Because when you bear
in mind, Kevin, you know how light novel has illustrations and manga as well. They most of the time they base it from the illustrations. So
the thing is, it's not the case here though, because the design on the cover of Another is not moe. So I'm not saying the art design is bad, by the way. It's really good, and for what it's worth, the characters are really unique. They look really interesting. It's just that I personally felt that perhaps it did not go too well with the atmosphere that was trying to be created.
I would like to interject about the point that Kevin said before. I did look at the light novel cover art now. I'm guessing the one that you're speaking about is the very kind of human-looking, realistic one with, I presume, that's Mei with her curly hair. Okay, see, that's what I didn't expect, because there are some light novel covers that actually have, the anime's artwork on it. I presume that was obviously after the anime was released. It is quite interesting. But at the same time, do you think an anime with that realistic art style would work? That's a question for you.
That's exactly what I was trying to say earlier, right? I mean, sure, I'm sitting in my, armchair, talking on the internet about how, they probably should have done this and this with the art style. But when you're, actually producing anime, perhaps you have to consider things like, the audience. Would the audience necessarily like, or would it appeal to the audience if we had a more typical art style, or should we go for a more serious art style, right? And in the end, I do think that, despite what I said, it ironically works because the cuteness kind of emphasizes the gory, horrifying moments, right? So it's an interesting approach. Was it something that I would have thought of initially? Not really, but it's cool to see what they did with it,
To some extent, yes, I kind of do agree with you there.
Actually, while we're talking about like art style or like art direction, there was something that I really loved about the animation. Like, I really like the quote-unquote realism with the animation. It's like, for example, like, let me give you a couple of examples. One example, when it's like Koichi's talking on the phone with his father, but there's like static, so he walks out of his room and it goes back to the call. Or like another example where like you see somebody trying to come to you, but like you see them like going like up a flight of stairs and then turning a corner. Like, it doesn't just cut to them. You know what I mean? It's like you kind of see everything happening. It's a very nice type of art direction.
It's interesting, and the animation and art style, they go hand in hand. And just like everything else in this anime, for whatever reason, I don't know why, it may just be a coincidence, it might just be my bias, but I find that for the first 2 episodes, things are kind of mediocre, but later on in the anime, they really pick up with the animation and the art style, because in the first 2 episodes, I mentioned how the cinematography felt really sloppy, right? And that's because they're making sudden cuts that I felt were really out of place, and they really did a lot of voiceovers in the first 2 episodes, right? For the beginning scene, for example, when they're whispering about the rumors and stuff, that's cool, right? I think that's a good use of voiceover. But then, when he meets a class for the first time, right, and they start asking him questions, like, oh, are you from Tokyo? What's it like living in Tokyo? Did you live here before? Do you have family here and stuff? And you start interrogating him. I don't know if you guys remember, but for that scene when he's being interrogated by his classmates, is just a voiceover, and in the background you just have random scenes that are going on with nothing to do with the questions that are being asked, right? So I felt it was so out of place, and
but
really...
I think it was kind of needed in a way, as you mentioned, as a distraction, as something to throw us off, especially.
But how so though? For that moment, because I don't think nobody died yet, and it wasn't a particularly tense moment, right?
For me, it added to the whole kind of creepiness of it all. Like, jumping to weird shots or shots of dolls or anything like that, it's just kind of like, what the fuck does this got to do? It makes me wonder, do these irrelevant things have something to do with the anime? And if so, I want to know. Do you see what I mean? It puts our mind in a position where we are more ready to kind of accept what might go on further down the line. I think that's why they've done that. Whether or not it's successful, that is debatable. I kind of do agree with you. The whole monologues and the whole voiceover in those points were not necessary, but I see why they've done that for that reason.
Like for 2012, the animation was very good.
Okay. This is something I want to mention about the art style. This anime is set,
art style,
I believe,
or animation?
in art style and animation. This anime was set in 1998. Am I not?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That is
set in 1998. It felt like an anime from 1998. Whether or not that was done on purpose,
really?
I don't know. Yeah, it did. Like I remember watching a lot of anime in the 90s. Like Big O and like Gundam, and yes, I'm not comparing it to Gundam, but not in terms of character design, but in terms of art style and animation. Specifically the art style of the characters, etc. They look quite odd. Like, for example, if you look at a lot of the characters, they are quite thin. A lot of them are. Like the I forgot his name. The guy that's into art. He's quite thin and he's quite scrawny. Same with the kid that had the heart attack. He's quite thin and scrawny. Even the main character Saki has that, as well as Mei. You kind of see the more modern art styles towards the end of the animations. I mean, within the final arc and even the beach arc when they're all in swimsuits and such, that's when you're like, oh man.
I was mostly talking about like shading and like cell shading, like the atmosphere. It's like it just felt very
even
recent.
then the kind of color palette that they used felt very dark. It felt very kind of dreary. Kind of, I'm not gonna say anime from the 90s is dreary, and not because obviously you got anime like
Ghibli films in particular.
Ghibli films and such, which are very colorful, but it kind of reminded me of something that is nostalgic to me. And even then, even the I don't want to jump the gun here, but even the music kind of felt like 90s anime. Even the whole the OST, the intros and the opening and the endings kind of felt like a 90s anime. Just saying.
That's an interesting note. I have to side with Joe and disagree with you, because a lot of the things that you say, they are technically true, but you have to think about the context, right? The genre. Yes, the music does kind of remind you of these older, horror B movies and stuff, but that's because it's trying to create this atmosphere of your usual horror movies, right? And the color palette, while it is dark, right, relatively dark, that's because it's a horror anime, right? It wants to convey this darker tone.
I know, but at the same time, let's compare it to something like I don't know, Danganronpa. I'm mentioning Danganronpa a lot because it's the other anime that has some sort of gore in it that I can refer to. That is a very somewhat colourful anime. Even in its dark moments, it is quite dark, but you can tell that
that's
it
because
is
the
quite
setting
modern.
is very different, though.
No, the setting is
kind
different,
of playful.
The
Whereas
thing with Danganronpa,
this is not.
The thing about Danganronpa is that's very like it has a very dark undertone, but you can tell that it's like it's not really trying to aim for that a lot of the time.
Yeah, aesthetically, I think.
But
that
even then, something like Danganronpa has a sort of modern art style, and you can't deny that the art style is very different to this. And it did kind of remind me of shows like this anime. There were moments where I was like, oh, okay, it has some sort of weird anime from the 90s vibe to it. Specifically for me, like, I'm not sure with you guys if you've watched anime from the 90s, but it kind of got that vibe from me there.
Yeah, I mean, I could compare it to Black Lagoon, which is not a 90s anime, but it's from 2005, so, 7 years before this anime came out, and I have to say that just from the art style, if you're talking about the landscapes and backgrounds, definitely, yeah, there's some similarity, but in terms of character designs and the main aspects, I find that it's a bit more modern because just the way that, even the noses are drawn and stuff, and the color palette, I agree with you that the color palette of 90s shows, I get what you mean in terms of, it's a bit more bland. I don't mean that in an offensive way. It's just a bit more flat, right? It's like if all 90s anime had this filter over it for whatever reason, and, they took it off for modern anime. I do find that, yes, it is on the darker side of things, right? Because it is a horror anime, but I do find that the colors are really bold, and there's some contrasts within the colors that they use, especially in Mei, right? Red eyes, black hair, and it's very bold colors that stick out. It's not like they're very light colors that you'd see in older anime, in my opinion.
Like, as somebody who has seen older shows, like for example, a show I talk about a lot, Evangelion, like it aired from 1995 to 1996, and like the colors aren't as, like, you see a lot of colors, but they aren't as vibrant as like they are in another. Like, you see everything shining, but like with like older anime, everything's more flat. So it's kind of like that's what we're referring to. Like, maybe it had like,
I didn't say it's going for it, but I'm just feeling that it is trying to emulate it, at least for me. Like, that's just what I picked up on it.
yeah, like I get exactly what you mean. Like, I know you mean, like, you're not literally saying that this looks like something from 1998. Like, it's more like from like art, from an artist standpoint.
One thing I wanted to mention about within that point is the kind of opening and endings, and I'm gonna jump straight into audio here. Is that the opening and the endings for me didn't quite fit what was going on in the anime. I'm not sure if you guys agree, especially with the whole for me, the anime at the beginning, when it was trying to build up the whole creepy moment, and then they kind of jumped to this kind of weird, once again, kind of weird anime from the 90s sort of music. It was just like, does this... It took me out of the whole creepy moment. I was like, really? You're really going to do this? But then towards the kind of middle and final arcs of the anime, it kind of worked for me. At the beginning it didn't, and then the thing. But the ending for me, it didn't fit anywhere. It was just like this weird piano music at the end, and it was just like showing all the characters in that kind of end sequence. And I was like, really? Like, what's the purpose of this?
I have to say that I did notice something about the ending, Bish, and I agree with you. Initially it feels really off, right? But I noticed something. I want to see if you agree with me on this, all right? So it feels really out of place, right? Because, have these fucking characters dying, right? They're, like, gushing blood and shit. It's really gory. And then you have this really serene, peaceful music with this very light colors, everyone's smiling and all is good. And you're like, what the fuck? That doesn't match the theme at all, right? You went from extremely gruesome to extremely peaceful. But then that's when it hit me, where it's like, oh shit, maybe that's what they want, right? Same with the art style, because if you think about it, if you look at the actual animation and the art style they use for the ending, all the characters start fading in like ghosts, right? And they're all smiling and happy, and it's basically a world where the curse doesn't exist, and they're all happy and they're all alive, right? So it contrasts a lot with what's actually going on in the anime, and I think that might have been intentional. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my point. It's just I didn't know that at first. For me, I didn't realize that they were planning this all along. No, for me, the first thing that I thought was, this feels off. It doesn't match the rest of the anime. It wasn't until like episode 6 or 7 that I noticed that, okay, maybe these gruesome deaths are meant to contrast with the ending.
Maybe it's just me, but like it just kind of came to me. It's like, oh, this is just really creepy, the end. But like I do agree with Kevin, where in the sense that like the opening fits. Like, I feel like the opening kind of works with the show in a couple ways.
Aside from the opening and ending, though, which we do have mixed feelings on, I want to know your thoughts on the OST, because for me, it's pretty fucking amazing. And I think that
I completely agree with you.
They really nailed it.
I do agree as well.
In a horror anime, all right, like the life or death of a horror anime is in its atmosphere, okay? And we already established that, the art style is really good, but the music is such a critical component of any horror anime, and they did it so well in here, right? Because whether it's moments of, where people are dying and you want to show shock and disgust, or whether it's moments of, where you're getting mind fucked and they're revealing things and they want to show, tension. In every moment, the music fits extremely well with what's going on screen. And
I completely agree with you. I also feel that the music is very immersive. Like, I don't, like, you can ask me, oh, Bish, do you remember any specific music tracks from that? I can't really get any from the top of my mind. Although I feel that the music was so good, it made me forget that I was even watching an anime. It made me feel that I was, not necessarily was there, but I was looking at this situation as if I was an eagle, just soaring over it. It made me feel more immersed in this whole situation, in what was going on. It didn't, like I mentioned, it didn't feel like an anime to me. It felt more like me
you were
watching...
spectating a real incident in real life,
exactly,
right?
Yes. And I think that's down to the music, because the music made me feel that as if I was in that situation. That's what it made me feel like. I couldn't even remember the tracks. That's how good they were.
Like, there's actually one notable part of the anime that really made you appreciate the music a lot more. It's when when Koichi's talking with his dad, and as they're cutting between scenes inside inside a school building and outside. It's you can clearly hear nothing. You don't hear anything outside, but you can clearly hear something inside the building. It's it's very subtle, but you can hear it. It's kind of set a nice tone for those specific scenes. And also, when the music was slowly rising up, that's something a horror anime needs to get down to the nail if they want the atmosphere to feel like it's truly creepy. And I feel like they did a really good job with that.
As I always say with OSTs, because I'm an audiophile, basically, right? I don't know whether I'd download it because it's kind of creepy. I wouldn't want to listen to this, on a fucking jog. So I wouldn't download it. Other than that, though, I find that when you have to pause, right? When you're so immersed, right? And you snap out of it and you pause the show that you're watching and you go, holy crap, that was really good. And you try to go look it up. That's when you know you have a good OST in your hands, right? And that's exactly what happened with another. Because I have a list of moments where the music stood out to me. And I was like, damn, they really fucking nailed the atmosphere. And probably the most iconic soundtrack is the music that plays at the doll shop. It's sort of this slow music box combined with, I think it's called a xylophone, right? So it's really slow and creepy, right? And it really sets the tone for Mei and the whole doll shop, right? Because at that point, you're still wondering whether she's even alive or not, if she exists, right? So it adds the mystery elements. And another great thing about the OST is that it's not just, doom and gloom. It's really malleable, adapts to many situations as well, right? And this is especially true in the chase scene where the fucking innkeeper goes nuts and starts murdering everyone. And, the protagonist is freaking out, right? It's really tense, and that's reflected in the really fast music that they suddenly have for that scene, right? Where she chases Mochizuki and Teshigawara. It's really tense, really fast-paced, right? So it contrasts with the rest of the soundtrack, but it fits really well with the moment that it's inserted in. You know what I mean?
Can we talk about voice acting now? Because I think this is very important to me. I really want to spend quite a lot of time on it. For me, there's obviously a dub and a sub of this anime. I'm not sure if both of them are on Crunchyroll. Are both of them on Crunchyroll?
Because I was watching it all subbed. I didn't really pay attention to whether the dub option was available.
So yeah, the place where I watched it basically defaults to the dub of the anime and not the sub. So then obviously I quickly switched it over to sub because sometimes you don't really want to watch an anime with a mediocre dub to it, and this anime does have a mediocre dub. And the reason I say this was it's cringy. When you watch the first kind of a couple of episodes, it takes you out of the immersion. It's man, come on. Mei doesn't sound as creepy as she normally sounds in Japanese.
Reiko sounds like a 12-year-old.
It's weird. No, Ray. Oh my god. Even shit. What's the guy? The main character sounds completely different Saki, oh my god,
He has such a squeaky voice.
He's like, hey, what's up, guys? Yeah.
T. Martin here.
Here's the problem I have with a lot of dubs: that they just don't sound natural.
They don't, but at the same time, this is why I watched the remainder of the anime. I watched the first 6 episodes in sub, and then I watched the rest in dub. And let me explain.
What is wrong with you?
Then how were you
Bish?
able to watch the final like massacre scene?
I watched it in dub, and let me explain.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
And I did get a chance. A couple of days ago to watch the last 6 episodes in sub, and obviously I do agree it's better in sub. But during my initial watch, I was completely freaked out by this anime. You know, I would get some sort of nightmares and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what? If I'm going to continue watching this, I might as well watch it in the English dub, because the English dub is so poor that it just
But
made
it's actually scary.
it made it like less scary. So I was like, oh man.
Just out of curiosity, who licensed the dub?
Who done the English dubs? Dubs. Sentai Films work. It says here that it was they licensed the anime series for digital and home release in 2012. So I'm assuming the dub was done in 2012. But even then, when I was watching the dub, it kind of added like I said, it kind of added some sort of nostalgia, because you know, in the 90s when dubs were like really bad, English dubs were really bad of anime, other than like Dragon Ball Z and such. Those kind of
They did it on purpose to add to the atmosphere.
It kind of, that's why, maybe that might be why I'm saying it had this kind of 90s feel to it. But it watching the English dub made it less scary to me. And I think if you're someone who's afraid of horror animes and you just want to get into this anime, I think watch the English dub. And
I would disagree, because in my opinion, you're missing so much if you watch the English dub. It's the emotion at the end. You
I know, but
need it
at the
in
same
in the
time,
sub.
this is where the reason why I'm saying that is because if you're very squeamish and if you're afraid of these sort of horror animes and you're very new to it, like for me, I can't handle horror animes, I can't handle horror shows, but watching the dub eased me into it.
Bish, you basically just said you want to use you want people to use the show's flaw in order to help them watch the show.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying
that's what you're saying, dude.
I'm saying for people who can't handle horror, because not everyone can handle horror, not everyone can handle thriller or gore or anything like that.
The voices have nothing to do with it.
No, the voices do. If you've watched the English dub, the voices do. It takes you out of a sort of scary atmosphere. It breaks that atmosphere for you. And
But that's so counterintuitive, though, because it's ruining everything else in the anime.
No, that might be your opinion. Yes, I do agree that the sub is the Japanese version is incredibly better, and it does add to that horror anime, vibe. But at the same time, if you're someone like me, I've had incredible amounts of nightmares. That's why I had to switch over, because I felt that the English dub wasn't as scary. Like I couldn't if I didn't.
Wait, were you having nightmares from another?
Yes.
Oh damn. Okay.
Yeah. It did give me that vibe, and I feel that there are some people out there who will be like me and can't handle this sort of thing. So I'm not saying to everyone, watch this like that. No, I'm saying if you can handle the horror, watch it subbed. If you can't, watch it dubbed, because it will ease you into the anime. And I think, yes, it is a very mediocre dub, but it does take you out of that sort of horror aspect of it, and it lets you... I don't know, it lets you kind of not necessarily enjoy the anime, because you might think, oh shit, no man, this was really shitty dub. But hopefully that shitty dub can,
It's like the casual mode on RPGs where they tone down the difficulty to the point where it's just, you're enjoying the story.
Exactly, that's where that is. And if you want to rewatch it, I rewatched it in sub, and like I said, it did fuck me up. So if you want to rewatch it in sub after you watched it in dub, that would be great. If you're one of those kind of people like myself who can't handle horror or thriller and such.
I do agree with Bish, because there are people that will freak the fuck out at scary things, and like I am myself pretty squeamish, alright? I'm not gonna lie to you. I still found that the sub was good, and like Bish said, if you think that you're too scared and you don't want to have nightmares and shit, but you still want to enjoy the anime, then by all means go watch the dub. But if you're willing to take a little leap of faith, or you're not that squeamish, I do encourage you to watch the sub, because it really is an integral part, just as much as the OST and as the animation and art, in creating the atmosphere that Another is going for, right? So personally for me, having a dub that bad kind of goes against everything the director was aiming for when he was creating the anime, right? But to each his own, I guess.
Yeah, like in the end, it's to each his own. If you want to listen to the dub and you'd prefer it, if you want something that isn't as like fully immersive, then that's up to you if you're not really used to the horror genre. It's just that what I personally think is that you're kind of doing yourself a disservice by watching it dubbed as opposed to its intended voiceover, which is supposed to give this ominous, like this horrific vibe.
One thing that I wanted to mention that when I was watching it, subbed through my second watch through, it's the fact that a lot of the characters sound incredibly creepy, and there's one thing that creeps me out the most, and I think the creepiest sounding character wasn't Mei for me, it was Koichi's grandmother. I don't like the way Japanese grandmothers sound. They sound so creepy. Like,
I'm surprised that you mentioned her and not the fucking creepy ass old lady in the doll shop.
Well, no, she was creepy, but I expected her to be creepy because she was just in a creepy environment. But the grandmother, the way she's speaking when Koichi's in the hospital, I was like, what the fuck? She has something to do with something.
We talk about the dub and sub. We may have our disagreements about the quality of each, but I think that one thing that remains constant in both would be the sound effects. All right, and I think the sound effects are pretty well done. All right, I don't know if you agree with me, but the reason I say that is because it's so well done in the gory moments. All right, that it's enough to give you fucking nightmares, right? And I'm going back to the first death again because it's the one that marked me the most. It was the moment when I realized, oh shit, they're not fucking around in this anime. That's because the blood in particular, I don't know what they did, but when she gets fucking impaled by an umbrella, right? Just the blood coming out, and then her gasp, because she doesn't die immediately. She fucking like has a seizure or some shit, and she's like gargling or.
I've actually learned about this in forensic science. Like, it's if you hurt somebody in a certain way, then their blood will shoot out in like a specific way and it'll affect them.
Exactly.
And like it'll make them react in some ways. Like maybe like some blood will kind of just will just leak out. Like it isn't like, oh, you're gonna start shaking around. But if you cut somebody in a way that makes them like shoot out of their veins,
but that was like right in the fucking jugular,
then
or
you're
some
gonna
shit,
end up
right?
like
because she got impaled right through the neck. So just those sounds of her like trying to talk or something, like her.
Well, because here's the thing: she's choking, she's gasping for air, and her blood is splattering in a way that like. Okay, think of it like your body is kind of like your blood isn't exactly like moving very fast in your body. Think of it like your body is kind of like keeping your blood in like a calm space. But like once somebody suddenly cuts into you, then that blood flow just shoots out like a stream of water.
There is a question that we normally talk about: would we want to see a second season? But obviously, I don't think that's applicable.
It's not gonna
only because they did kind of wrap up this whole anime quite well, to be honest.
There isn't anything that can really continue.
No, yeah, I'm satisfied with the one season.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Right?
Same. One thing that I did wonder was that I can see this becoming a film.
It is a film. There's a live action film and a manga.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
And actually,
okay.
Don't know whether I want to see the live action film because. Firstly, live actions are kind of mess sometimes, and I don't know whether I'd be able to handle this gore.
In terms of the live action, I wasn't thinking necessarily of a live action film. I was thinking
a full on.
I was thinking as an original video animation instead of a drawn out series. I think this would have worked potentially as maybe a 4-hour film.
Oh, so you want it to be like Batman levels of a movie quality.
I mean, that is true because there's still some things been explored that's not enough for a second season, like you said. But the books, there's episode S/0 that came out not too long ago, or well, in America at least, and that's basically talking about a portion of that story is
Misaki's
about
past.
Reiko's past, right, in her time. So that'd be pretty cool
Wait,
to see.
Reiko's past? I thought it was Misaki.
No, it's both.
Like
But
a
one-
like a
one-
prequel type thing.
So
Yeah.
Reiko's past and Misaki Mei's past?
No, for Misaki, it's just a side story of what happens on during summer vacation, which doesn't happen in the book. But now that you mention it, it'd be pretty cool to see perhaps a standalone film about the previous classes that dealt with this and who did not have the countermeasures and shit. Right? That'd be pretty interesting. But if there were to be a second season, I think that'd be very samey to this season because the general plot wouldn't change, the premise wouldn't change, the curse is exactly the same.
But
right?
the thing is, with the second season, it would be an original thing. It would be non-canon because there wouldn't be a source material for it.
Exactly. And I wouldn't want that because I'm satisfied with the way they wrapped it up here. I wouldn't want them to go out of their way to ruin the ending that they established here.
One thing that I want to mention is the opinions on the anime. Like, I personally, would I recommend it to someone? Potentially. It depends on who I'm speaking to. If it's someone that I know is into, not necessarily into anime, but they're into, horror shows or horror films, definitely. I would say watch this anime. Watch it in the sub, of course, but if they're used to it. If I wouldn't recommend it to someone who is new to anime. Certainly not, because I think that might skew their opinions.
The only time
on
I would
anime.
do that is if they are like a horror junkie.
Yeah.
But they want to
That's
get into anime.
just
That'd
what I
be
said.
perfect.
So
But otherwise,
Yeah, no, that would
Yeah.
like Kevin described it how I want to describe it. Like if you're really into horror and you want to get into the anime scene, then another would be a good starting point. But if you want an idea of what anime is generally like, then another is a no-no.
No, it is not this brutal usually. I have a question for you guys actually because this is the first time that we have a Halloween special, like I said, and this is the first time that we've covered a horror anime for Kunai, and in fact, I believe for almost everyone except for Joe, who's watched Corpse Party, this is our very, very first horror anime, right? So I was wondering, what effect has another had on you? Has it piqued your interest in horror anime? Would you consider watching other shows in the genre? Because I think I would.
it's very interesting because this kind of affected me on an emotional level. I'm not saying it fucked me up like so bad, man, that I had to go and see a psychiatrist. But I get dreams about, these events that happened. They were playing again in my dreams as if it was like some sort of on a loop. And it did affect me emotionally. There were moments where, I didn't want to watch the anime because it was just like, I don't want to see death. And obviously there's a lot of anime that makes me feel like this, but I think this anime made me feel like this the most. Whether or not I'm intrigued in horror anime, no, I'm not really intrigued in horror anime. I was intrigued in this anime because there was that element of mystery and there was some sort of mystery to be solved. I love mystery animes, so that was pow for me. I love that. But would I watch something like more horror shows because I've watched another? Certainly not. No, I'm still going to keep my stance on I don't really like horror shows, etc. So I only kind of watched this for Kuna. I didn't really was intrigued in watching any other horror shows. But this one was a good one. Do I regret it? No. The reason that is because it did have that element of mystery behind it. There was a story. There was a quite coherent story besides the loopholes, but there was an element of mystery, and as I mentioned, I love mystery animes. That's why I love Danganronpa. That's why I love Persona. So,
Well, the thing is, I've had my fair share of experiences with both like non-anime related horror and anime horror. Like for example, I've seen Corpse Party. Like I've seen like The Walking Dead. Like it's like those two examples are two examples of what I've seen in the horror genre.
Corpse Party, I agree with the Walking Dead. I don't know whether I.
Well, I mean, I'm talking as far as, well, I don't want to call it horror, but like it's. I was talking more along the lines of like the intensity of like the blood or like the gore, stuff like that. Because you do see some pretty fucked up stuff in there. So I guess I could say like I was used to like lots of blood and lots of like corpses. So when I watched another, it didn't really bother me. Like, sure, it did surprise me a lot of times because I didn't really see lots of things coming, but I was still like I didn't feel very uncomfortable about it because like I'm used to it.
I see. Well, for me, like I said, it's. I don't know whether I'll go full on marathon a bunch of horror anime now, but I do think that just because of how well done this anime is, how well the atmosphere is portrayed, I think that I'm more willing to, dip my feet into this genre than I was before, because before I was squeamish. I still am, but I just had a bad impression of horror anime before because I was expecting, very cheesy, uninteresting shows, right? But another showed me that, no, this can be done very well, can be done in a very emotional, engaging way. So if there are other shows that, have this mystery element with a horror, I'd definitely be interested. Would I watch something, that is just gore, for the sake of having gore, like Saw? No, I wouldn't do that. But I'm definitely interested in exploring other shows in the genre.
Right, and actually, I would consider, like, off topic, but I actually would consider Walking Dead as horror, because here's the thing, like, horror and, like I said before, horror and thriller are two different things. It's like thriller is like scares and everything. Horror is more like you see something very gruesome, very bloody, and like it's like somebody reacting to it. You know what I mean?
Well, guys, that was a very interesting conversation. I think that we all came in with different points of views, and we all come out with different points of views on horror anime. But the next episode, we will be having featuring an anime that is a bit less intense, let's say. Bish, you tell us what it is?
It's an anime called Nanana's Buried Treasure, and I think that's a very interesting anime for me. It was an anime that I was also introduced by a guy called Exaliborg, same guy that introduced me to Excel World and Heneko. So this Exaliborg guy is like the new Daniil. So with Nanana's Buried Treasure, it is a sort of supernatural show, and it has a mystery element in it as well. So I think it will be very interesting. Remember, guys, it is on Crunchyroll. So it's on Crunchyroll in the UK, it's on Crunchyroll in Canada and in the US as well. So remember, guys, if you want to kind of keep up to date with that and kind of join in on the conversation for when we talk about the episode, when we talk about the anime, please go to crunchyroll.com/kunai for your 14-day Crunchyroll Premium free trial.
Also, if you guys like this episode, want to share your thoughts about the episode itself or the anime, things that you disagree with, things that you agree with, then don't hesitate to contact us on Twitter. We have a Twitter page at GALP-kunai, and we also have our personal Twitter pages. So mine is at the Tempest Phoenix, Phoenix spelled with F-E-N-I-X.
Yeah, mine is at Get a Life Podcast. It's always been the same.
Mine is Kibo Gamer, spelled K-I-B-O-U-G-A-M-E-R, and unfortunately, I am not talking about Danganronpa as much as I used to be because has now ended and my heart is broken.
But there's V3 coming soon, so be
that's
prepared
true.
for that.
No, I'm probably gonna be streaming that a lot. So if you I'm probably gonna post links on my Twitter for the stream when around the time it comes out, so you could stop by, say hi, maybe shit on me about my skills in the game.
Those two things are brutal when combined. Also, if you find that Twitter isn't my sort of thing, then we also have an email actually, and it's glp.pea@gmail.com. Just send all your messages through there, and we will get them. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode. We hope that you enjoyed listening to it as much as we did making it and watching another. It was certainly interesting, I think, for everyone here. And until next time.
I love all of you.
See you guys.
See ya.